What's up, Jaguars? Mr. Crowder here. Hello and welcome to Monday, December, what is today? The 7th. And I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Welcome to Language Arts. We are continuing with the Diary of Anne Frank. We are going to wrap up the play this week, and I'm going to do a whole bunch of reading and review for you, and some reflection questions. And then on Friday, we're going to be doing a huge recap of the whole play. Today's reading, we are starting at Act 2, Scene 3. We skipped all of Scene 2 because basically what happened is Anne and Peter figure out they have a crush on each other. That's what happened. We didn't miss much. We're going to pick things up on page 175, Scene 3. I'm going to read from 175 to 178 today, lines 1 through 65. So here we go. Scene 3. It is night a few weeks later. Everyone is in bed. There is complete quiet. In the Van Dan's room, a match flares up for a moment and then is quickly put out. Mr. Van Dan, in bare feet, dressed in underwear and trousers, is dimly seen coming stealthily down the stairs and into the main room where Mr. and Mrs. Frank and Margot are sleeping. He goes to the food safe and again lights a match. Then he cautiously opens the safe, taking out a half loaf of bread. As he closes the safe, it creaks. He stands rigid. Mrs. Frank sits up in bed. She sees him. Mrs. Frank, screaming, Otto, Otto, komm schnell, which means come here, come quick. Mr. Frank, was ist los, was ist passiert, which means what's the matter, what's going on, what happened? Mrs. Frank, stiehlt das Essen, he steals food. Dussel, grabbing Mr. Van Dan, you, give me that. Mrs. Van Dan, Pooty, what is it? Dussel, you dirty thief, stealing food, you good for nothing. Mr. Frank, Mr. Dussel, for God's sake, help me, Peter. Peter comes over, trying with Mr. Frank to separate the two struggling men. Peter, let him go, let go. Dussel drops Mr. Van Dam. He then shows them the end of a loaf of bread that he has taken from Van Dam. You greedy, selfish. Margot turns on the light. Pooty, what is it? Mrs. Frank, the bread. He was stealing the bread. Dussel, it was you, and all the time we thought it was rats. Mr. Van Dan, how could you? Mr. Van Dan, I'm hungry. Mrs. Frank, we are all of us hungry. I see the children getting thinner and thinner. Your own son, Peter. I've heard him moan in his sleep. He's so hungry. And you come in the night and steal food that should go to them, to the children. Mrs. Van Dam. He needs more food than the rest of us. He's used to more. He's a big man. Mrs. Frank, and you. You're worse than he is. You're a mother, and yet you sacrifice your child to this man, this, Mr. Frank. Edith. Margot picks up the pink woolen stole, putting it over her mother's shoulders. Mrs. Frank, don't think I haven't seen you, always saving the choicest bits for him. I've watched you day after day, and I've held my tongue, but not any longer. Not after this. Now I want him to go. I want him out of this house. And they all yell out. Mrs. Frank, just that. Take your things and get out, Mr. Frank. You are speaking in anger. You cannot mean what you are saying. Mrs. Frank, I mean exactly that. Mrs. Van Dam takes a cover from the Frank's bed, pulling it about her. Mr. Frank, for 2 long years we have lived here, side by side. We have respected each other's rights. We have managed to live in peace. Are we now going to throw it all away? I know this will never happen again, will it, Mr. Van Dam? No. Mrs. Frank, he steals once, he'll steal again. Mr. Van Dam, holding his stomach, starts for the bathroom. Anne puts her arms around him, helping him up the step. Mr. Frank, Edith, please, let us be calm. We'll all go to our rooms, and afterwards we'll sit down quietly and talk this out. We'll find some way. No more talk. I want them to leave. Mrs. Van Dam, you'd put us out on the streets? Mrs. Frank, there are other hiding places. A cellar, a closet. I know. We have no money left to even pay for it. Mrs. Frank, I'll give you money. Out of my own pocket, I'll give it gladly. Mrs. Van Dam, Mr. Frank, you told Pooty you'd never forget what he did for you when you came to Amsterdam. You said you could never repay him. That you, Mrs. Frank, counting out money. If my husband had any obligation to you, he's paid it over and over. Mr. Frank, Edith, I've never seen you like this before. I don't know you. Mrs. Frank, I should have spoken out long ago. Dussel, you can't be so nice to some people. Mrs. Van Dam, turning on Dussel. There would have been plenty for all of us if you hadn't come in here. Mr. Frank, we don't need the Nazis to destroy us. We're destroying ourselves. He sits down with his head in his hands. Mrs. Frank goes to Mrs. Van Dam. Mrs. Frank, giving Mrs. Van Dam some money. Give this to Meep. She'll find you a place. Anne, Mother, you're not putting Peter out. Peter hasn't done anything. Mrs. Frank, he'll stay, of course. When I say I must protect the children, I mean Peter, too. Peter, I'd have to go if Father goes. Mr. Van Daan comes from the bathroom. Mrs. Van Daan hurries to him and takes him to the couch. Then she gets water from the sink to bathe his face. Mrs. Frank, he's no father to you, that man. He doesn't know what it is to be a father. Peter, I wouldn't feel right. I couldn't stay. Mrs. Frank, very well then, I'm sorry. Anne, no, Peter, no. Anne turns her back to her mother, crying, I don't care about the food. They can have mine. I don't want it. Only don't send them away. It'll be daylight soon. They'll be caught. Margot, putting her arms comfortingly around Anne. Please, Mother. Mrs. Frank, they're not going now. They'll stay until Meep finds them a place. But one thing I insist on. He must never come down here again. He must never come to this room where the food is stored. We'll divide what we have, an equal share for each. You can cook it there and take it up to him. Dussel brings the sack of potatoes back to the center table. Oh no, we haven't sunk so far that we're going to fight over a handful of rotten potatoes, Margot says, and that ends at line 65. So what we have here is we have these Mr. Van Daan stealing food, and we're getting to this point now where they've been together for 2 years, and they are stressed. Like this is going crazy for them. Like they are really, really stressed out, and you could see like the emotion for Anne. Like I told you, she developed a crush on Peter, and so now she can't stand the thought of him leaving them. And we have this division starting right now between the Franks and the Van Daans. So your reflection question of the day is, if you were in this situation, and I'm going to keep asking you guys to be in this situation, if you guys are in this situation, would you steal food? Or would you try to support the group as best you could? I'm only looking for a couple of sentences, but I want you to put yourself in their shoes. If you're hiding, you've been up there for 2 years, your rations have been cut, you don't have near enough to eat to fill your stomach, what would you do? Would you steal food? Would you go behind the backs? That's what we're looking for today. If you have any questions, don't forget to hit me up on Google Hangouts, send me an email, or reach me through Google Classroom. That's it for Monday. I will talk to you guys tomorrow.